YouTube family. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, and share. We're going to talk about an important court case today. Marbury v. Madison. You're going to love this case. This was one of the best cases to study, not only because it reminded me of something out of Game of Thrones. Till this day, hundreds of years later, this is the reason America has, for better or for worse, a strong and independent judiciary. This is how the judiciary became powerful in the United States of America. Okay, let's dive into the background of this infamous case. So, Marbury v. Madison came about because this was a political showdown between outgoing Federalist President John Adams and incoming Republican President Thomas Jefferson in 1801. After losing the election, Adams appointed numerous Federalist judges, what historians will call midnight judges. Essentially, he was trying to stack the court with favorable judges who would cause his successor harm when trying to legislate or create new laws. That way he could, be a bit of a, what's the word I want to put it? A bit of a spoiler. So this included William Marbury as a justice of, when Jefferson took office, he ordered his Secretary of State, James Madison, not to deliver Marbury's commission. Now, before I jump into the details of the case, I would further like to go into the background of the midnight judges. Now, I do want to make it clear, John Adams' purpose for appointing the midnight judges, which were very last-minute appointments, he did plan on packing the courts. I want to make it very clear, even though people try to give this idea of courts being outside of the political spectrum, or, they're basically their stamp of approval. What makes the American judiciary so independent if laws or executive actions are constitutional? And not only that, federal judges serve for life, insulating them from political pressure and election cycles, which helps them make decisions regardless of popular opinion. And I do also want to point out, thanks to the Constitution, the legislative and executive branch providing a check on their power. Now, I do want you guys to know that the reason I'm talking so heavily about the midnight judges is because they play a central role to this case and why this case even came about, which is why it was such a brilliant move by the judge's genius. Now, as I did mention earlier, the midnight judges were signed in by Adam in his final hours with the Secretary of State, John Marshall, which he did fail to deliver before Madison took office. By packing the courts through the Judiciary Act of 1801, Adams aimed to protect Federalist policies. Having lost the presidency and Congress, the Federalists sought to use the judiciary as a long-term stronghold to counter Jeffersonian influence. With the Judiciary Act of 1801, this law allowed Adams to create 16 new circuit judgeships and 42 justices of the peace, reducing the workload of Supreme Court justices of federal power and the Federalists dominated court system. The resulting dispute over these commissions led to the landmark Supreme Court case, Marbury v. Madison. Now that we have some background of this case done, let's dive into the case itself. Facts to the case are this. Thomas Jefferson defeated John Adams in the 1800 presidential election. Adams and Congress passed the Judiciary Act in 1801, which created new courts, adding judges, and gave the president more control over appointment of judges. The act was essentially an attempt by Adams and his party to frustrate his successor, and he used the act to appoint 16 new circuit judges and 42 new judges of the peace. The appointments were approved by the Senate, but they would not be valid until their commissions were delivered by the Secretary of State. William Marbury was appointed Justice of the Peace in the District of Columbia. His commission was not delivered. Marbury petitioned the Supreme Court to compel the new Secretary of State, James Madison, to deliver the documents. Marbury, joined by 3 other similarly situated appointees, petitioned for a right of mandamus, compelling the delivery of the commissions. Now, the question for this case was, 1. Do the plaintiffs have a right to receive their commissions? 2. Can they sue for their commissions in court? 3. Does the Supreme Court have the authority to order the delivery of their commissions? Well, in a conclusion, it was unanimous for Marbury, the majority opinion by John Marshall. Though Marbury was entitled to it, the courts was unable to grant it because of Section 13 of the Judiciary Act of 1789, conflicting with Article 3, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, and was therefore null and void. The court found that Madison's refusal to deliver the commission was illegal, but did not order Madison to hand over Marbury's commission via right of mandamus. Instead, the court held that the provision of the Judiciary Act of 1789, enabling Marbury to bring his claim to the Supreme Court, was itself unconstitutional, since it purported to extend the court's original jurisdiction beyond which Article 3, Section 2 established. Marshall expanded that a right of mandamus was the proper way to seek a remedy, but concluded the court could not issue it. Marshall reasoned that the Judiciary Act of 1789 conflicted with the Constitution. Congress did not have the power to modify the Constitution through regular legislation because the Supremacy Clause placed the Constitution before the laws. So in holding, Marshall established the principle of judicial review, the power to declare a law unconstitutional. Now, I do want to give you guys a heads up. I do plan on making a special video just discussing the midnight judges, just because I found this case so amazing to study. And this was a really smart political move on the judges' standpoint, because by sacrificing a few of the others, they created long-term power that cemented the Supreme Court to be in a position, not just the Supreme Court, but just the court in general at the federal level, to be a powerhouse that it is today. By doing so, they made it so they have the power to strike down laws or uphold them. It wasn't done prior to this. Like I mentioned earlier, they had wanted a weak judiciary, but because of the smart maneuvering of judges, they were able to have this long-term power that still benefits them to this day, hundreds of years later. Now, a conclusion from this court case was it created judicial review. This established the principle of judicial review, the power of the Supreme Court to declare laws unconstitutional. Before this decision, the Constitution did not explicitly say the court could strike down laws passed by Congress. Marshall argued that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Any law that conflicts with it is void. It is the duty of the judiciary to interpret the law. This fundamentally strengthened the judiciary as a co-equal branch of government. It strengthened the Supreme Court, in particular at the time, the court was the weakest branch. After this decision, the Supreme Court became the final interpreter of the Constitution. It gained authority over both Congress and the President. It cemented a system of check and balances. Without this case, the court might not have the same power as it does today. I want to thank you all for joining me and sitting through this case review with me. And if you've made it this far, please like, subscribe, and share the video. Let's help this channel grow. And like I said, I created a group so you guys can give me suggestion on any case you want to talk about, whether it's constitutional cases, local cases, and criminal, civil, any area of law. Thank you for tuning in.